Hey Mac people, this is part one of our logo construction projects. So this video might be slightly different from the one that the PC folks have because it's a fresh take, it's a hot take on this project. Here is the project sheet, which I'll hand you out on paper in class, so you'll have a hard copy of this. And let's go ahead and get started in Vectorworks. So I'm going to open up a file I already have, but you can create your new one using your Cal Poly Pomona template. It's the Bartenstein Logo Project file. So I usually put my name and then I put whatever the assignment is called so that it's clear in my file management what I'm talking about. So I'm starting here on the logo project. Let me rearrange this business so that it makes a little bit more sense. See how I can hover over it when it's blue and it sticks? That is life. Okay, so I'm on the scenery layer. You'll notice on mine, there's no page, and that's because I have friends who lose their minds, and by friends I mean kids in high school. You'll also notice up here there are a couple of visible options that you don't have: show hide page boundary and show hide grid. If you want to get rid of the grid, the page boundary, right? You don't need a page boundary. We're drafting a 3D model anyway. That's this little twirl down menu. So this is where you can find those things, find those options, and then you can also turn them on and off like this, right? That's the page boundary. That's the grid, okay? So this would be like an ArchD page, but we're not going to worry too much about that. The key in this equation is that you're zoomed in a decent amount so that you're not drawing a really giant thing, because if you draw a really giant thing, then it will slow down your computer and make everything sad. So I just kind of zoom in a little bit so that I'm working at like the 20 feet by 20 feet kind of square. You can see that on your drawing rulers, which you can also choose to show or hide, but let's go with this for now. So our logo 1 is the Instagram logo because it's some simple shapes. The point of this is to just practice drawing simple shapes. You should be able to get through all three of these in one class because they're pretty straightforward, but I'll give you a bunch of different tools that you can use in your life. Design life. Okay, so first thing I want is, and this is the other thing I'll be doing some over the course of this video because I don't have all of the keyboard shortcuts memorized. I use some a lot more than others. If I hover over something, it'll tell me what its keyboard shortcut is. That's the little business in the parentheses. So we're going to start with the rounded rectangle tool. It would be option 4 on a Mac. And its control is usually written out. Whatever tool you have selected, it's usually written out up here. So it's like set corner of box containing the rounded rectangle. So what this is telling me is that my first click will start one corner of the box, my second click will finish the box. So I'm going to start kind of a random sized rounded rectangle box. There are also options. If you look in here, there are options like corners and how big the corners are and whether they're symmetrical or proportional. You can choose these things or we can leave them alone. I'm going to let it do what it wants. All right, so now I've clicked once. That's placed my top corner. Now I'm kind of just flying around to do my bottom corner. The thing about the Instagram logo is it's not in fact a rectangle. It is a square. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and that will lock proportions on any square, rectangle, circle, oval, whatever. Shift is going to be kind of the shortcut to lock your proportions. You can also notice by my cursor that there's a quick dimension, which is telling you how big the thing is. I like this like 9-foot-ish thing. Click. Great. So my second click, now it turns yellow. It's a shape. Okay? So that's step 1. My next step is going to be to use another tool to create an offset. It's called the offset tool. It's right over here. Its keyboard shortcut is Shift minus. I don't think I've ever actually hit Shift minus before in my life, but here we are. I'm going to change the distance to about 4 inches. because of the scale of this thing being about 9 feet. That's going to give me a little bit of a space, and then it's going to draw a copy of this rectangle 4 inches inside of it. It's also going to be affecting or relating to the object that is selected. Okay, so if I click out here, I just drew a bigger version, and so I can't see that first one, and this is not my life. So I'm going to delete that. But now nothing is selected, and it's not going to actually draw anything if I click anywhere, right? Because this is now not sure what it's creating an offset of. If I hold down the Command key, and again, this is written right up here, so if you forget what you're doing, you can look up at the little helper notes. If you hold down the Command key, you can select the object that you want to use as a reference, and then I can click inside of it, and now I have an offset rounded rectangle that's 4 inches inside of my first one. Yay! Awesome, wonderful. Now I'm going to hit the X key. The X key is the shortcut back to my pointer, to my selection tool. And the reason I do that is because I want to select these 2 rectangles, and I'll do that by drawing a rectangle over both of them. The other thing you can do with your selection tool, besides drawing a big rectangle that covers both of them, right, and I'm hitting escape to get out of that, is if you hold down Option while you draw, right, or Alt on a PC, it'll do everything you touch instead of everything that you surround by your rectangle. That can be useful sometimes. Okay, so now I have my 2 rounded rectangles selected. I'm going to go to the Modify column, and as I look down, one of my options is to clip surface. So I'm going to clip surface. There's a real complicated keyboard shortcut that I don't mess around with, but it's probably what, like Shift Function Command or Shift Alt Command. I don't know. I just go to clip surface in the menu. Life is going to be great. So what that has done now is it's removed this center chunk as a separate object from my outside chunk. Okay, which has divided itself into 4 little tabs. But that's cool. It's going to work just the same. So I'm going to delete the interior rectangle. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to select all of these guys, these individual pieces, and it says 4 polylines. That's true. And then in order to make them a solid, like thicker line, I'm going to come over here to the attributes panel where it says solid, and then underneath it is the fill color. Make it black. Great. Okay. So that's my first step. Cool. Great. Wonderful. My next step, I'm going to go ahead and group these. That locks them together and kind of creates one shape. The convenient thing about that will be that it has like a center of gravity in a moment. So my next shape is going to be the circle. The circle tool is the 6 key. Again, I don't use that one a lot, but it's available to you. Its standard operating mode is that you click in the center of the circle and then you drag out to whatever radius you're looking for. So I'm going to just align these 2. If you notice, I have my snaps set up so that if I hover over a point and I get that little red box, now I can align. Did you see how that happened? So now I'm getting a kind of invisible dashed line. Let's do this again. So I can hover over and get a red box, hover over, get a red box. I get these 2 individual invisible dashed lines. When I click, I'm now centered in the middle of my rectangle. That's pretty cool. It's a useful trick. So now I'm just making this lens object. Let's do something like that. I could do my other line from that center point, but I'm going to use the offset tool again just because, and that was Shift minus. Click like this. Same steps. I just hit the X key, select those 2 things, and clip surface. Great. Delete that. And so now this circle object, I also want to go for the solid black color. Please, thank you. Great, awesome, wonderful. And now my last thing is to do the little flash tool thing. And that's another circle. Again, that's 6 is the keyboard shortcut. I've zoomed in because sometimes you'll have problems where you're like accidentally snapping to business you don't want to be snapping to. So I'm just going to draw a little black circle. Cute. Oh, it's a white circle. That's okay. No, it's a black circle. and I have an Instagram logo for all to see. I'm going to select all of this together and group it once again, so now it's a whole chunk of content. If I decide later that I don't want this grouped, it's super easy to ungroup it, and that's Command U. So group was Command G, ungroup is Command U. Okay, so that's logo 1, and I will upload this video and then draw my second logo.